Welcome to Writer Talks, where you get to meet the short story writers of Two Sisters Writing and Publishing who win our monthly contest and are published in our international anthology of short story winners. I'm here today with Laurie Marshall. Really excited to talk with Laurie and introduce her to you. She's an improv actor, she's a freelance writer, and she's a phenomenal talent. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate those kind words.
You're welcome. So you're coming to us live from Arkansas, and you spent many years and you decided to really commit yourself to your writing. So now you do freelance writing. COVID has enabled you to really dive into your creativity. So I want to hear all about it. But let's start with your winning story on the Two Sisters Writing and Publishing short story contest, and it's called Texting Mom. What inspired that?
That was, it had to have been a prompt. Gosh, I wish I'd looked back now to see when I started it, but I wrote it last summer. It may have been something actually that I just kind of created after seeing your contest announcement. So I lost my mom in 2009, and even though this story is not something that happened to me, it was easy for me to kind of put myself in the spot of having a stressful situation happen. And, we all tend to have our people that we call or we text when we're having something going on that we need to chat about, and not being able to reach out to that person anymore. And so it just kind of popped out of me. So there must have been something in there that was.
Yes. I love this story because it's about a woman who's breaking up or having man troubles, and she wants to call her mom or text her mom. And then she realizes she can't text her mom because her mom is no longer alive.
Right.
And it's really a kind of a punch in the stomach at the end, but it's
there's so many situations like that. And I think, since my mom died, there's been a grandchild born, and then one of her granddaughters married, and there's been so many things, and there's always those little moments that whether they're good or bad that just can't do anything about that anymore. So
right. But do you feel that writing is a way to process those moments, whether they're happy, sad, in between?
Yeah, I definitely do. I've always written in journals and diaries. And when I was a teenager, I wrote poetry, and those being able to put my words down on paper, even though I've never gone back and read those journals, I probably don't want to go back and read them.
Right.
I've always had journals where I would process what I needed to talk about. In fact, I'm not a person that really talks through a lot of stuff until it gets to a big place, I guess. And so if that makes sense. And so just putting things down in my journal is kind of a way for me to know what I'm thinking and to hear my own voice, and when you're busy, when you're a mom or when you have a job or whatever, that's, if you can't really hear your own self think, putting it down on paper is one way to just process all of that, because you have to think at least enough to be able to write it down.
Yes. So Laurie, what calls you to write?
Oh gosh. So I have always found it fascinating when I meet people who say that they have known they're going to be a writer since they were young. I was a voracious reader. I was reading ahead of my grade in first grade. I went through books, Nancy Drew and Little House on the Prairie books. And then I was always in the library at school. And yet I never understood at that time that I could be a writer. I was a reader, but no one ever introduced me to the idea that there are people out there who create stories for me to read. And so I'm fascinated by people who have always known that. So for me, it came along much later. Now that I look back, I see that in jobs that I've had over the years, I was always trying to find a way to write. I would have a job as a secretary and I'd say, hey, we should have a newsletter and I'll take care of it. I'll write that. But for me, writing is just a way to tell a story. I love communicating a story, whether it's a freelance article about actual people that I've met or a place I've been, or in my fiction, it's just characters. I love films that are really character driven
Uh-huh.
and real cinematic, and that's the kind of stories that I love. And so
Mhm.
it's just fun to create those people, those other
Mhm.
people.
I love it. And you really like flash fiction. So first, can you talk about what is flash fiction and what do you love about it?
Sure. Flash fiction generally is understood to be stories that are 1,000 words or fewer, and different journals have different word count requirements for that. Then you get into microfiction, which is 400 words or less, or 250. And then there's even 100 words or less that are just tiny, tiny little stories. I learned about flash fiction several years ago when I participated in an NYC midnight contest. And I'd never heard of it before, but it was 1,000 words or less, and they give you parameters and a genre to work with and tell you to go for it. And so that was my first introduction. I had been trying to write a novel for several years, and I'd gotten to the point where I didn't know where it was going. It was just kind of sloughing along. And
Uh-huh.
so when flash fiction came along to me, I found that I really enjoyed creating stories that kind of jump in the middle. And the whole
Oh.
idea of flash is that you get rid of all of the extra stuff that isn't necessary. Every single sentence, and when you get to the micro, it can come down to every single word has a really it's really important in telling the story.
I
And
love that.
so it's fascinating. Yeah, it's really fun. And I also love having the parameters, like I can't be any bigger than this. And so it makes me really think harder about what I'm writing, because I can overwrite. I can write the first paragraph of a story like 4 times before I
Yeah.
finally get to where it really needs to
Yeah.
start. So for me, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that restriction of it.
Wow. So I'm always, as a book coach, I'm always saying less is more,
Yeah.
word economy,
Mhm.
say it with as few words as possible, but pack the most powerful punch. So what that does, and it's so fun, Lori, when you're writing and like say you write your first draft and then you go back and hack it down and replace 4 words with one great verb. Isn't that
Exactly.
fun?
Yes. Yeah. I love it when I see, oh, I've got 3 words here and I can do it with one.
Yes.
Or if I am repeating myself, I love digging out my thesaurus and thesaurus. I always say that wrong. My thesaurus and finding 10 other words that could replace
Uh-huh.
them. Some are much more poetic and
Yes.
writerly than what would
Yes.
initially come to me. So it's a lot of fun. It's like a puzzle. I enjoy it a
Yes.
lot.
So that is so exciting when you instead of saying walk, you say saunter.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of
Right.
saying
Right.
talk, you say, I don't know, whispered or but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so fun when you like really jazz up the writing with those kind of words.
Yeah. And it creates an image that is different. It's different if you see if your character is walking, that looks completely different than someone who is sauntering or ambling or meandering. Or so
Yeah.
it really the word choice also builds your characters. So you don't have to do a lot of backstory. You don't have to tell someone who this character is. You tell them who it is through the behavior of the character, or the movements, or the way whatever's in their pocket, like that tells you who
Uh-huh.
the person is. And that I love
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff. It's so much fun.
So that's about show, don't tell. It sounds like
Yes.
you've mastered that. You're showing
Oh
instead of
well.
telling.
I think that's what I'm aiming for. I'm yeah, it's fun.
Speaking
It's
of, it's perfect. Hmm?
no, it's
That's
good.
a perfect, okay, segue to workshops, because you said now during COVID, it's given you time, during the pandemic, it's given you time to take workshops, and that everything being virtual, you don't really have to travel places. So
Right.
can you talk about how the workshops have helped enhance your enthusiasm and skills?
Sure. Yeah. When I think about when my Flash journey started, the NYC Midnight started me off. And then last summer, I kind of my husband and I had a chat about my writing work, and I was feeling kind of like, well, is this something that I need to keep pursuing? Do I need to get a full-time job? And he was very supportive and, was like, yes, you need to keep doing this. And so I found the workshop, and I think the first one I took was with Tommy Dean, who is the editor-in-chief of Fractured Literary. And he is a super supportive workshop leader, for one thing, but then he really showed me things about Flash that I wasn't really aware of, and structure and things like that. And from meeting people in his workshop and following them on Twitter, that I started building a group of peers on Twitter of writers who are also giving workshops or are being published in different journals. And that really opened my eyes to what all is out there that I had no idea was out there. I have not been a literary journal reader in the past. So the brilliant thing about the pandemic has been that so many bookstores and writers groups and universities and literary journals have been hosting writing workshops, and those are things I wouldn't have been able to take. Like
Right.
I went to a festival that was in Philadelphia, and I wouldn't have been able to go to that. So that has really helped me. The pandemic has helped in that regard because so much has moved online. And so for someone
Yeah.
like me who has responsibilities, which most writers do outside of writing,
Yeah.
that's been great for me to be able to just spend a Saturday or spend a couple of hours in the evening learning more about my
Mhm.
craft and getting to know more writers, which then is just exponentially helpful when I don't really
Mhm.
have a writing group
Oh, you
around me.
don't.
So yeah, so
Mhm.
it's been, I if anything good comes out of the pandemic, that is definitely one of my top things, is
Mhm.
being able to make these networking connections with other writers.
So how has that helped you? Just the camaraderie is fun, obviously, but has it enhanced your craft? Has it enabled you to learn about other contests or
Yeah,
opportunities?
all of that. It's been, I've learned, one of the things I learned about over the last year is hermit crab fiction. So that's writing a story that's encased in something that's not a story. So you'd write a story that's in the form of a receipt to Home Depot, or you'd write a story that's in the form of a grocery list. And there's a ton of it out there. I had just never seen it. Like I said, I don't read literature journals, or I didn't before. So that is something I've learned. And then the craft, I think, I think if you are open to the idea that you are not yet at your best at all times, then taking any kind of workshop is going to be great. But I really have been taught by some great Flash writers, Sarah Lippman, um, Andy Dean, like I said. Cheryl Pappas is a great, fabulous and hermit crab writer. Hannah Greco. There's just so many out on Twitter that I've gotten to know and to read what they say what they share that they're publishing, and it's taught me enormous amount about what I could do better, and comparing what I'm doing with what they're doing that's getting published, or what's winning contests. um, you know, it just goes back to really the old adage of, if you want to be a good writer, you have to be a reader. So the more Flash I read
Oh,
and the more workshops I'm in where people are being supportive but saying maybe this and maybe that, that's just that's the way every artistic experience is. I think you have to always keep trying to get better. So
oh, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about your writing rhythm, your style. Do you write in the morning? Do you write in the middle of the night? Do you have to have coffee or tea with you? Do you have to have some kind of crystals or something? What's your what's your writing style?
what I have to have is water. So I try to keep water on my desk. I was thinking earlier about if you asked me, okay, well, what do you need, to start being a writer? I was going to say, well, you have to learn how to make a good cup of coffee, and then you have to pick your favorite pen. And those are the
Is that your favorite pen?
Pilot Acroball is my favorite.
Why?
My method, I've found that I'm not the person who can get up at 5 a.m. before everyone else is awake and write. Even though I've been freelancing for 8 years and I am making a little money at it, and I have the support of my spouse and all of those things, I still feel a little bit guilty when I sit down to write because
why?
Because it's something I enjoy. So I know that that's crazy, but what I've come up with is in the morning, I spend my morning doing the laundry, getting my kid out of bed, doing things like sending emails and things like that. And then I get creative in the afternoon after I feel like I've gotten a lot of things done. And then I also just think my brain's clicking a little bit better once I've gotten stuff done, and I can kind of focus on my own things.
Fascinating. Okay. Because the thing that you love so much, there's guilt around it, but it's like your indulgence. It's your joy. It's your not oasis. It's like your creative sanctuary.
Right.
And
sure.
yeah, I love that. But that's so funny that I understand what you're saying. Because when I'm working,
like I don't literally feel guilty, but it's just that little twinge of,
I know.
And it's also, we all talk about as writers getting distracted by those things. So it's also a way to go, okay, once I sit down, I don't have to think, oh, the dishwasher needs to be emptied.
Right.
So it's all done.
That's real.
That's not an excuse anymore.
That's so real, because you sit down, you're like, oh man, I got to put the clothes in the dryer. The dryer stopped. Or, oh man, I got to go take out the whatever. It's hilarious. Like they all come pouring in as soon as you sit down to write.
Exactly. We'll make any excuse not to do the thing we love to do. So
isn't that weird? Oh my gosh. But every writer can relate to that. So listen, you just showed your pen. Does that mean that you write by hand, or do you write on a computer?
I do. I start by hand. I keep just composition size notebooks, and I start by hand. And then once it feels like it's going somewhere, then I'll go back and type it into the computer. And then it may get longer, or it may be about done, but I'll edit it and mess around with it. But yeah, I've tried doing the initial inspiration on a computer, and it's really strange. I don't know what it is about typing that it just doesn't come to me the same way that writing does. And I don't know, it doesn't flow out of my head that way. So
wow.
Yeah, whatever works.
So you must have a bunch of notebooks that are just full of words.
Well, you would think, except like I said, it wasn't till last summer that I really got started. Let me see. I've got this one. So I love finding vintage notebooks in the thrift.
Oh, fun! And look at your fun, colorful tabs in your colorful office. I just love it.
Thanks. I go back and mark things that either if I took a workshop, maybe there were notes that I need to go back to, or there's a piece that I need to go back and, I haven't put it in a computer. I think I have about 3 full notebooks right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Something else I do, this one I think is the one I started, is that in the back of my notebook, I started writing prompts for myself. So when I think of something that might be, maybe I read somebody else's flash or a story that makes me think, oh, I have something, I have a story that could be similar to that or whatever, then I'll write it down. Or if I see something like I've got topless swimming in the backyard pool, like things that I think of that I'm like, oh, there could be a story. There's a character or a story in that. Then I'll put it in the back of the notebook. And then if I'm sitting down to work on something and try to come up with something new, I have all those prompts waiting for me. So that's really helpful.
I love it. So what's your favorite topic to write about?
I don't know that I have a favorite yet, but things that keep coming up are my mom for sure. I even in short story workshops where we're writing fiction, it inevitably, at least once in the workshop, someone will give a prompt and I'll start writing something about something that happened with me and my mom, or just my mom, somehow my mother comes in, and that's probably a metaphor for something. Somehow my mother always works her way in.
Uh-huh.
But so that I'm past the hard grief over her loss. She died in 2009, but there's obviously still things that I feel like I need to still just revisit. It's not a difficult thing necessarily, as just a kind of a way to remember, I guess. And so so that's one thing. My sister teasingly told me that I send her things when I get done with a story. I'm like, hey, okay, I wrote this today, or I worked on these this weekend. And she told me one time, all your stories are sad.
Oh
And
my
so
goodness. Oh,
I tend to write, just like the texting mom, I tend to
right.
write situations, even with stories that are just complete fiction. There's always a little twinge of regret, or someone's not happy as they could be. I have a short story. I have a flash about a woman who gave a child up for adoption, and she's taking her kids out to trick or treat for Halloween, and she's going to stop by their house. She's found out where he is, and so she just wants to see him. And so the story is that her anxiety is they're going to the house, and so that's really melancholy, and so things like that pop up a lot. I think lots of regret, I guess. I don't know what that says about me. I'm usually an upbeat person. But all my regret comes out in my work.
Wow, that's fascinating. So
Yeah.
does she ever see the boy?
Yes, at the very end, and then it ends with kind of then she's home and it's over. So it's kind of a quick ending. I haven't gotten that one accepted yet. I think I still need to do some work on it. But yeah, lots of kind of stories about people thinking about decisions they've made and whatnot. But I do have some funnier pieces that I've worked on that I'm trying to be. It's so funny because you mentioned at the onset that I'm in an improv group, and I'm told that I'm funny, and and I feel like I have a great sense of humor. But when I sit down to write, I think it's kind of a block. Like I'm terrified of trying to be funny, and then it doesn't come off funny. So I
Yeah.
just don't. But every now and then I do have a few pieces that haven't been accepted yet that I feel like are, quirky and funny. So hopefully someday someone will see them for what they are.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, Laurie, what are your big dreams? Like, what would be the ultimate goal for you as a writer?
Oh goodness. It's hard. I mean, I think just being able to make a living as a writer would be, that's every writer's dream, right? And if I worked harder at my freelancing, I could probably do that and then keep doing my fiction on the side.
Hmm.
I, my husband, when I started writing, when I started freelancing and then I was going to work on my novel, I think he had the dream that I was going to be the next J.K. Rowling, and then he would retire. And that hasn't happened yet. And I keep it probably won't happen.
Oh, I love it. That's fun.
But for me, I think I'm thrilled just to see my work out there. And I don't really have like big dreams. I just want to write my stories, and I hope that other people enjoy them. I'd like to write a memoir in Flash. I have that novel that I'm thinking that the novel needs to become a novella, and I'm
Oh,
thinking about how to restructure that.
uh-huh.
But really it's just about storytelling, and just I'm a creative. And so being able to do my creative work and get paid for it and have people enjoy it, I think that's why I perform. It's why I make art, and I used to do craft shows and stuff. And I just like to share all my creative stuff.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
I love it. That's so fun.
I guess I'm getting pretty close to meeting my dream already, because I'm kind of already doing those things. So
Isn't that a great revelation though? Like you're
yeah,
already doing it.
it's nice.
It's
Hmm.
not something you're chasing. It's already here and you're getting paid for some of your writing, which is another
Right.
awesome thing. And
Yeah.
it's getting published and people can see it. Your short story, Texting Mom, will be in our third anthology, which is coming out later this year. So that's really exciting because people around the world read our anthologies because our authors are all over the world and they order it and their friends read it. So that's very exciting. And when you get
Yeah.
that affirmation of being published, what does that feel like?
Yeah, that it's exciting every time. I've had, I think I was just counting today, I think it was 7 things so far that have been published, and it's all of them are online journals, except the anthology that you guys are going to put out. That'll be the only one that will be in print that I'm pretty sure that's right. But all of them, it's always exciting when I send something off. I feel confident about it, and I'm pretty good about not being really worried about it when I get a rejection, because I
That's
know I won't.
great.
I mean, yeah, maybe it hasn't.
They're
Maybe,
awful.
maybe there haven't been enough months in between them yet to really get depressed. At some point, maybe I'll be really upset about it, but yeah, it just inspires me to keep going back, and what else do I have, and keep working
Right.
on it. But it feels great when I get an acceptance that says we really love this story and we can't wait to share it. And yeah,
Yay.
and most of the ones that I've had accepted don't pay. A lot of little online journals, or not little, but a lot of online journals don't pay. But the fact that it's out there and it's getting shared, and I can add it to my Twitter profile, and I
Uh-huh.
can put it in my clip file, that's exciting to me. So
Mhm.
beyond the money, it's really just about being able to be can get that confirmation that what I'm doing is appreciated, and that I'm doing a good job, and I'm getting better and better and better. So that's important to me.
I love it. I love it. I love it, Laurie. So can you talk about, just to wrap up, how social media helps you as a writer, especially during the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, the the writing Twitter community has been, I I would not I would not have the publications that I have, I think, without that, because I've learned so much there from other writers, and then just learned about journals I could submit to and workshops I can take, and everybody's so supportive. Someone posts that they have a new thing out and posts the link for it, and everybody jumps on and congratulates them, and that kind of support, when especially since, like I said, I don't have like a local writing group.
Right.
They're my group, and so if I didn't have them, um the odds are I wouldn't really have anybody other than my poor sister, who reads all my sad stories. My
Okay.
brothers too, I have to mention them in case they're watching, but um,
Okay.
they're the first ones. Every time I finish something, I send it to my siblings and make them read it.
Oh,
So,
I love it.
and they're supportive, but yeah, having other people that you don't even know who read it and go, "Oh, this is great. I love this." That's amazing. So that's
Wow. What's your advice to writers who are watching who want to get involved in the writing community on Twitter, for example? How do you do it? How do you start?
um okay. I guess the way I learned about it was by taking the workshop from Tommy Dean, and then everybody in that workshop kind of started following each other, and,
Oh,
and that led me. Some of the people that follow him are also editors of other journals, and so really it's about mining all those connections. I think,
mhm.
if you well, there's hashtags. So there's hashtag writing community, there's hashtag am writing, um and I think there may be one for writing Twitter, or writer Twitter. And if you start following some of those, or just click on those and start seeing who's using those, then you just start following the people that look like they mostly all have in their bio that they're a writer. Some of them will have what genre they write in. They'll say if they are an editor for a journal. And so then you just start kind of branching out. When one of them posts something and 10 people comment, you go look at all those people and see who they are and what they do. And then you interact. I'm on Twitter way more often. I see what everybody's doing. And then I want them to know what I'm doing. So yeah, just interacting, reading their stuff and sharing it if you love it and things like that. I think that just goes a long way. Yeah.
That's really helpful advice, Laurie. Thank you. Because writing can feel like such a solitary pursuit, and it is,
Yeah.
but you do need that camaraderie and that guidance, and it's so enriching. So thank you for that tip. Is there anything else you?
It's been great for me. In fact, I want to say too that like just being part of that community got me a volunteer job as a reader at a journal. And then it also led to someone, I think I asked a question about, what was it? I asked some question about editing. Oh, no, I know it wasn't my question. One of the writers I follow offered to read some folks' work and give them comments on it. And so that allowed me to send her a couple of things, and she made some great comments. So yeah, just participating in groups like that are
Wow. I have taken so many notes because I have just learned so much from you. So thank you very, very much, Laurie Marshall, for joining me on Writer Talks tonight. And I wish you the absolute best. And I love that you say you're doing your dream right now, and more good things are to come, I'm certain, because you're very talented.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for giving me the time tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I'll put links to Laurie's social media contacts handles, and her story, which is on the twosisterswriting.com website, is one of the winning stories. You can read it. And then you can watch for the anthology later this year and see it in print. Thank you, all of you, for joining us tonight, where you got to meet Laurie Marshall, one of the winners of our short story contest, who will be published in our international anthology of writers. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins of Two Sisters Writing and Publishing. Please do like, share, subscribe, and comment on the video. We'd love to hear what you think about all the great things Laurie said. And meanwhile, happy reading and happy writing. I'll see you